Welcome to PR Powerhouse, helping female entrepreneurs to get in the press and to gain PR. I'm Jo Swan, and I'll be sharing how to harness the power of the media to boost your credibility and business visibility, no matter what stage in business you're at. Because I'm on a mission to show you that PR is not just for the big boys. In the show, you'll learn how to reach out to journalists and own your place in the press, because you are ready to become a PR powerhouse.
Hello, and welcome to episode 10. Today, we are dealing with a bit of a different topic. So far, I've been building you up. I've been getting you excited about PR. I've been telling you all of the fabulous benefits of it. I've been getting you giddy about, you can do this, you're ready for this, we've got to go all in. Today, we're dealing with a little bit of the reality that comes with PR. And that is Journo rejection. But fear not, we are not going to be beaten. We are not going to be hounded down by any level of journalist rejection. We are going to take it on the chin, and we're going to use it in a positive way. So do not worry. I just wanted to come at you in this episode with a little bit of a reality check and just a little bit of a guiding voice. If you are putting yourself out there and you are starting to do that and you're starting to feel brave, I don't want any negativity to start to eke in if you are not necessarily getting the results that you want straight away. So that's what we're going to be dealing with today. We are going to be taking that and dealing with that and talking about it. And I'm going to be giving you 5 things to think about and remember when you do get those no's from journalists. So let's start by remembering that we are playing a game here. So what I've been teaching you in the past few episodes are some of the behind the scenes ways that you can play the game of PR. Ways that you can increase your chances of success when you are trying to get yourself free editorial coverage, which is, as we know, an absolute privilege. So if we're playing the game with someone, aren't we? We're playing the game with journalists in this case, and we're not always going to win. Now, we can learn how to increase our chances of winning. We can absolutely learn that there are lots of ways that we can improve those odds. But ultimately, we are not always going to win, and we are not always going to get a yes. So I want you to be able to deal with that. I want you to be able to realize that that is not a failure, that it doesn't mean that you're no good. It doesn't mean that it's a complete disaster. And I want you to realize that even with 20 years experience, myself and my team, we get a lot of no's. We get a lot of no's every day. It's part of it. It's part of the process. So I want you to realize that as well, that we deal with lots and lots of no's before we get these incredible celebration yeses. But we don't sit at our desks crying. We don't beat ourselves around the head. Do you know what I mean? We are not kind of saying that, oh my God, this is a failure, this is a disaster because this journalist has not quite picked up on this story this very second that we want them to. So we don't sit crying into our cups of tea. We frame it and we think about, right, how can we move forward from this? And that's what I want you guys to do. And remember that each no is always a step to a yes. So that's what we're going to focus on. So I'm going to now share with you 5 things to remember if you put yourself out there, you introduce yourself to a journalist, and you get a no. Okay, so number 1, let's remember that it's not personal. Okay, and this is a really big, important one. Because sometimes when we are pitching ourselves to journalists, we really build up the reputation of that journalist, or the image of that journalist, or the kudos of that journalist. And when they knock us down, or when they just don't accept our particular pitch that time, we feel like it's a personal rejection from someone who we have built up to be better than us. A really interesting analogy came out in our challenge recently, where one of the ladies said that they felt that a journalist was part of the popular gang. So like at school, a journalist was the popular crowd. They were the popular kids. And they wanted to be that person's friend. They wanted to be in their gang. And they felt like the underdog, and they felt like they weren't quite there and that they were on the back foot. And that was one of the reasons why they were a little bit nervous sometimes about approaching journalists, because of this kind of image that they had of them. So when we build somebody up like that, then it's really quite hard to be rejected by them. But what we need to remember is it's not rejection. So if you have pitched something to a journalist, or if you have responded to a request that they've put out perhaps, and you either haven't heard back or you've had a very polite, no, thank you, not this time, then that is simply meaning that it's not quite right for them at this second. And there's lots and lots of reasons for that. It might be that actually they've already found something that they wanted well before the deadline that they'd set. So it just might be that they don't need anything at that particular moment. It might be that they actually already have an existing relationship with someone else who can talk about that subject matter, and they happen to have gone with them this time. It might be that actually they had a completely different agenda in mind, and that the angle that they were really after was something that was unspoken, that they didn't even really communicate properly what it was that they were looking for, so you were never going to be the right person. And it might mean that if you have pitched something proactively to them, rather than responding to a request, and they say, no, not quite yet, it might just mean that they just haven't quite got what you're about. They might not have got all the detail of actually how you could fit in with what you've suggested. It might be that there's just another level of information that's required. So it might just be that it's too early in your journey, in your relationship with them, for that to have particularly landed at that point. If it's not something that they are desperate to write about, then it can take a little bit longer. So remember, it's not personal. And use the process to build resilience. Resilience is so important in PR. It really, really is, because it's not a one-hit wonder. It's not something that just happens as if by magic. You send out your ideal PR piece and it gets picked up in the national media the next day. Very, very rarely does that happen. So it is a process, and it's something that we have to commit to doing on a long-term basis. So first thing then we want to remember is that it's not personal. They are not the popular kids that are dissing us because they've decided to not particularly run with that piece at that time. It's not personal. It's not about us. Okay, number 2, you won't get blacklisted. Now, a lot of people are fearful of sending things out to the media because they fear that if they get it wrong and they send the wrong information, or they don't send the stuff that the journalist uses straight away, that they feel like then it's the end of the road for them. They've been blacklisted. The journalist hates them. They will never, ever get PR ever in their entire lives. And that isn't how it works either. Just because of the pace of journalism, because of the need for such consistent current content, they're always looking. They don't cross people off their list unless you have sent them something really, really terrible, which you will not have done if you've followed all of our steps. You won't be blacklisted. So please don't think that by sending something, that if it doesn't hit the first time, that's the end of the road for you. We don't want to put that much pressure on ourselves. We don't want to big this up to be something that it's not. We want to remove that pressure, and we want to just realize that a no is a no, and it just means it's not quite right for that particular moment. But you will not get blacklisted. They will never open any of your emails ever again. They won't ignore you the next time that you tweet. So please don't take all of that stuff so to heart, because they certainly don't. So we want to remove some of the emotion that we might be feeling around that, and stop putting that in our way as something that maybe stresses us out or makes us fearful. Okay, number 3, remember your content isn't crap. And that might be quite a hard thing to grasp if you have been knocked back a few times by journalists, if you've been putting content out there and it's not hitting, it's not biting, it's not getting the traction that you want. But quite often, it's not the content, it's just the timing. Like I said in the first point, it's the deadline, it's other factors that come into play as to why a journalist chooses you or doesn't choose you. But there are things that you can do to just sense check the content that you're sending. Now, if you're responding to a reactive inquiry, so if you have replied to a journal request, if you have responded to a call out from a journalist, then you can obviously just give yourself that little sense check to make sure that what you sent was the best that you could have possibly sent in that situation. Because sometimes we do rattle things off, and sometimes we think it's better to reply than not to reply, but that's not always the case. So often it might be that you could improve the way that you have responded to that request, and you could increase your chances. So really look at what they've asked for and really challenge yourself to see if you could have said anything different. if you could have made it so much clearer that you were the perfect person for that response, could you have nailed it any more? Could you have been more specific? Could you have given more of your story? Could you have given more of you? Could you have given them more reason to trust you, to believe in you, to make them feel that you are credible? And that's what we've got to do. We've got to just think about how we learn from these situations and be really honest with ourselves as well. So sometimes a journo rejection is actually a little bit of a mirror back to say, do you know what? I could have done better that time. I could have put a bit more effort into that. I could have really thought about that response and written something more specific for them. So if you're just replying with the same generic thing, then that actually is probably going to lead to failure. So be honest with yourself and really review whether what you're putting out is actually the best that you could possibly put out to really, really optimize your chances of success. Okay, number 4. A no is a step closer to a yes. And if you've ever done any sales training at all, ever in your life, you will have heard that many, many times, because quite often it is a numbers game. And this is exactly the same when you're trying to target journalists. You're effectively trying to pitch to a group of people. And a no is a step closer to a yes because it means you're on the journey. It means that you are progressing. It means that you are ready to be in these conversations. So a no is much better than not having tried at all. A no is getting you in their world. A no is getting you starting to build relationships. Now, as long as you're not producing crappy content and you're not responding in a way that is not doing you any justice, then a no isn't always a negative thing. It's actually just an opportunity to open the door to a journalist and then to think how you can use that. So if you've been in a conversation with a journalist, if you have responded to something and it hasn't led to anything, it doesn't have to be the end. It doesn't have to be the end of that conversation. Think about it as an open door. Think about it as a way that you have already entered their world and now you can go down a different path. So think about if you've engaged with them on Twitter, how can you build that relationship on Twitter? Follow them, share their content, comment on their content before you pitch them again. So start to build the relationship up a little bit more before you then do your next pitch, because that makes a huge amount of difference. If they actually know and connect with you as an individual, it makes a massive amount of difference to you just cold pitching. So get involved in some Twitter chat, get involved in some interaction, in some engagement, and really get into their world. Also, save their contact details because the people that are reaching out and the ones that you have chosen to respond to, or the journalists that you have chosen to pitch to, are obviously the right journalists for your subject area, because otherwise you wouldn't have bothered in the first place. So build up your contact details, build up your media database by making these connections and saving their details. Because we need to play the numbers game and we need to be reaching out to these people several times. So make sure that you're not missing an opportunity and just kind of crossing them off and going, oh, well, that didn't work. Save their contact details. Think about how you can retarget. Think about how you can connect with them and think about how we can use those details, that information for future success, because you are going to get future success. We're not doing all of this to just have doors banged in our faces. You are going to get future success if you are doing it right. So the no's are just a part of the process. They're just a part of the journey. And I just want you to disassociate from them and stop putting so much kind of emotional connection to it if you don't get a reply or you get a reply that isn't quite what you want. So we're not letting that beat you. We're not letting you see that as a failure. We are finding ways to feel positive about this and to feel like it's all okay and to get back up. So number 5 is all about retargeting and going again. It's about getting back on that horse because we don't want to fall. We don't want to give up. We don't want to not take these amazing opportunities that are right there at our fingertips. So we've got to go again. And that's where doing this more and more often builds up your resistance and your resilience. And also, you do really start to get a feel for what's working and what isn't working. And then you can tweak and you can adapt your approach. So absolutely retarget and go again. Don't think that you've been banished or blacklisted by that journalist. Don't think that your content is crap and start to rip everything off and start again from scratch. Just remember that this is a process. Now, when you're going to retarget and go again, to give yourself a confidence boost, why don't you really, really target? So why don't you go back to something that you know is pretty much a no-brainer? So specific to your content area. So perfect for your mission and your message that you need to spread. And maybe go back down a few levels. So if you've been pitching quite high-end magazines or really big nationals, take it back down to a blog, or take it back down to an online publication. Take it back down to a publication that you can contribute to online. Take it back down to something that you know you're going to have a success with. Build that confidence back up. Share your wins, celebrate those wins, and then go again. Because we are not taking Journo rejection as a failure. We are not taking it as something that means that our PR journey is coming to an end. Ultimately, it's all a part of the process, and it's just something that we have to be able to take on board, be able to move forward from, and be able to recognize that it's not the end. So you might have learned from that we don't take no for an answer. When we get our no's, when we're talking to journalists, we don't accept those no's. We just politely kind of nod and go, okay, that's fine. It's not right this second. Right then. And then in the background, we're like, right, what are we going to do? What's our next plan of attack? How are we going to get in here? Because we absolutely need to get in here. And then it's all about the research. It's all about the retargeting. It's all about finding those different ways in or building up those relationships more. A no is not a no in our world. And I don't want a no to be a no in your world either, because this is when PR power really comes in, when you commit to it, when you believe in it, and when you do connect with it in a way that is more than just a one-off hit. When you really buy into the power of it in terms of consistent pitching, proactive pitching, and purposeful pitching, that's when you're going to have your success. So that's what we want for you, to keep focused, to stay in your own lane, and don't be knocked off track if it doesn't quite go to plan.
Thank you for listening to PR Powerhouse with me, Jo Swan. If you want to feel empowered and supported and excited about getting in the press, come and join us in our free community over on Facebook at PR You Can Do It. I would absolutely love to see you there so I can help you take those next steps to getting in the media.